And we should be live.
Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Obscura Undead's Subculture Shock. With you, as always, is Azy. I am the co-host, Clint from Blood Bells, and we have got a wonderful special guest today. Please welcome Mistress McCutchan. Yay!
Hello.
Uh, Mistress McCutchan is the co-creator and DJ of Prophecy Online. It's a once a club, but it's a semi-regular party to fully online stream this year in 2020 due to COVID. She is also the creator and co-host of the It's Midnight Somewhere podcast, which is a wonderful show. I highly recommend it wherever streaming services are. Mistress McCutchan is also the editor of the now defunct Morbid Outlook zine and the co-founder of Kaufen Apparel, Kaufen, a politically charged gothic fashion streetwear clothing and accessory shop where you can find wonderful gothist political merchandise. So let's welcome Mistress McCutchan one more time because I'm so excited to have her on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you.
Shucks. Thanks.
Hang on, I lost you on my screen. Let me pull you back up. Here we go. Okay, so today I'm sure we're all very excited about this, and I'm sure all of you watching are very excited. Today we're going to have a discussion about politics and goth. It's going to be around from everything to feminism to maybe where there's pockets of misogyny in the subculture. Also, primarily, it's going to be a discussion around political themes in goth music, where bands such as Alien Sex Fiend address toxic capitalism in songs such as Ignore the Machine, and UK Decay, which has described their musical themes as, quote, sex, death, the old gods, the new gods, war, human frailty, politics, deceit, horror, fear, etc., and having a sense of humor and positive attitude to prepare oneself for the aforementioned. So goth is political. I think that that's something that the three of us that are in this room that you're viewing right now feel. Others of you may not feel that, so we would love to hear from you as we're having this discussion. So, if y'all don't mind, I'm going to kind of get us kicked off with the first topic, unless there is anything you wanted to bring up beforehand.
No, I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, let's do this. Okay. So, I kind of just have like a list here. It's just kind of a general thing. So, I guess one of my first questions would be would you describe the goth community as you know it to be politically passive, active, or neutral?
Well, in regards to the temperature of the political nature of the scene, I think it's difficult to judge as a whole because we've said goth is political and people who are like, no, it's not. Why do you have to bring politics in? It's like, no. It's always been political because goth grew out of punk. So there's always been that theme. And this is a very left leaning scene. So, but I can't say, oh, we all think the same and that we all do X, Y, and Z, because sure, there are some people who are very involved in activism. There are people who are involved in doing all sorts of like volunteer work and working for various organizations and such. And then there are folks who are less so, but want to be sure that they are still aware of what's going on in the world. So I think there's a lot of variety in how active people, individuals in the scene are, but in the grand scheme, this is a left leaning, politically charged scene. I mean, art is political. Unless it's the kind of art that, well, I bought it to match the couch, but I
Which, hey,
mean,
that's got its place too, I'm sure.
it certainly does. It certainly does. But art makes a statement, and goth is very much wrapped up in art with music and the aesthetics, fashion, and all of that. And where you take it, I think, is very much up to the individual.
That's a very good point. Azzy, do you have anything that you'd like to jump in with on that topic?
I mean, well, that's well, it's a very broad topic, and honestly, like the first thing that I could think of was Mistress McCutchan's comment that we tend to be very left leaning, and I think that that's largely true. But like, um, in my local scene in Hillsborough County, where the castle is, which is a big goth club, like it always becomes an incredibly charged scene whenever anything changes in like regulations for COVID and such. And I don't
Yeah.
see a lot of that left leaning attitudes. I tend to see a lot of very conservative pandemic folks getting very loud.
Yeah, that
Which
that
to
is something I
derail
see in
this right
Texas too.
away.
Yeah, no, that's something that I see in Texas quite a bit too. And honestly, no, that didn't derail us because the mask, the anti-mask versus wear a mask crowd is an absolutely like one of the most politically poignant topics right now because
Right.
you're making a statement when you go out and say, "I'm too selfish to give a shit about the health of people around me." And I'm just going to do this because I'm being a fuck boy essentially, and I'm just being like, oh, look how amazingly tough I am, and uh look how much I don't care. Sorry, I'm not fuck boy though. We have to deal with a lot of those too. Edge lord is actually the word I was looking
I
for.
think that that's
um
a better
yeah.
word. Although club culture and fuckboys go hand in hand, but
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So no, and to kind of to piggyback off that, I do find us to be obviously a very left-leaning subculture, and it's kind of interesting. I don't know if y'all have seen this too, but there is this really strict divide, at least in the southern United States here, where you've got really liberal leaning people, and then there's some people in the scene that are like hard libertarian or right leaning.
like
uh
really
you
hard
know
libertarian. I tend to see more libertarians.
yeah, yeah. And in fact, in Texas, I can think of two people off the top of my head that are one of the and they're involved in the goth scene, and one of them is hardcore libertarian, and the other, it was a kind of a closeted Republican, which really shocked me. And so we opened up a discussion about that, and there were things that we're always going to agree to disagree on, but the one thing that I'll say is it seems to be way easier to discuss political differences within our subculture than it does with people that aren't involved. So, so there's that. But I've noticed, obviously you've got those branches on the goth culture. A lot of people I've noticed personally that are really into like the neo folk and stuff like that tend to be a little bit more right leaning, and it's a little bit more, like,
Well,
oh,
isn't
they've got a lot of.
neofolk kind of also a little bit infamous for having a lot of neo-Nazi themes?
Yeah, so basically, and that kind of brings us back to the discussion about art. So you've got people like, Boyd Rice and like Death in June, who, subjectively you can say, okay, the definition of art is something that's put together to evoke a response from somebody. But I am going to kind of branch off that and say, yeah, but if that response is only to be like edgy or try to get a negative reaction out of people, especially people that you're not part of the culture that you're kind of maybe offending, I say that it doesn't really count as art to me. But again, that's my opinion. But yes, you're right. Neofolk is very, a lot of it is notorious for using that kind of imagery. And a lot of people will pass it off like, oh, the swastika is ancient and all this. And it's like, yeah, but the Nazis ruined it, man. It's just not going to be the fucking same a lot of times. It's like,
Um,
uh,
Speaking of the swastika, though, a lot of people bring up Susie Sue wearing a swastika at one point.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, again, they weren't so far removed from World War II in the 70s. And you had a lot of these punk kids wearing swastikas as sort of this like fuck you to their parents, and not taking it as seriously. So because I believe she's apologized since then
Oh yeah,
about
no,
that.
I think she's
Uh,
definitely like paid for that.
but yeah, I mean, it wasn't, it didn't have the carry the same weight, and it was very much for shock value. Because I mean, sure, there are things people like you use the word edgelord, people doing things just to kind of like get a reaction and just to do it for shock value without really understanding the gravity behind that action or behind that symbol. Because yeah, sure, the swastika was originally a Tibetan symbol that was appropriated, and yeah, I think of other things that have been appropriated, like when somebody makes the OK symbol, and it's like, oh, that's now been appropriated by white supremacists. So it's kind of nuts. It was really funny because I mean, I'm American, but I live up here in Toronto, in Canada. And recently, our transit system, the TTC, had posted up an ad, and it was of a young woman who had a nose ring, and she's in her uniform, and they're like trying to encourage, like, look, we've got some diversity in our hiring, and blah blah blah. But she's giving the OK symbol, and it was like, how did this pass through? Like advertise, did they not vet this properly to know what they were really putting out there? Because people don't realize it, and it's like, well, no, this has now been appropriated, and you kind of want to be aware of those things before you put them out to the world. Because it's like, okay, well, what are you trying to say? Well, she's white, she looks like she might be kind of hip because she's got a piercing, and out of the cuff of her sleeve you can see she might have a tattoo. But like, so you're trying to show like, we're cool, we're hiring women. It's like, yeah, and she's white and she's doing a white power thing, so how about that?
And it can be argued that just because something isn't my kind of controversial means that that doesn't make it wrong necessarily, because art is subjective. Look at the Dadaist art movement, that was really absurdist and tried to do everything to offend the people at the time. But but as far as like the swastika goes, yeah, I feel like maybe 1,000 years from now, maybe like people can be like, are we working this back in? But it's one of those things where you only see it appropriated by usually people that do not have families that have had to go through a lot of that stuff. And I was explaining to Mistress McCutchan a couple weeks ago, we had a little talk about this, and I for several years, definitely before the last couple years, I was very much into some neo-folk stuff like Death in June, and I didn't look at it as like, because I was blinded by my privilege, I didn't look at it as well, I'm like, Douglas Pierce he's gay, he's very outwardly gay, and he's using this art to like evoke a reaction, and they had some really beautiful music. And as the more I kind of started thinking about it, I was like, I get that him and like Boyd Rice is one of the godfathers of like noise music as we know it. I don't know if it's music, but noise. So I get that they're from different generations. Like you said, they were from that same punk generation that was like, fuck you to your parents. So it's almost like they'll never get a pass, but it's like it goes past their logical thinking. They're like, I'm just going to keep doing this because I've been doing this for a long time and this art works for me. So I had to kind of wake up myself and be like, hey, I don't know if I can willingly support something that I know can be super hurtful to other people. Even if it's not my kind of controversial, I can see how it would be very upsetting to a lot of people. So
yeah, and this is where as DJs we make decisions on what kind of music we want to support. And I know the crew of DJs that I work with here in Toronto and other DJs that I've talked to, we definitely have lists of things we just won't play.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Because there are certain bands that I'm not going to draw attention to them. I'm not going to give them any play because they're shitty people. And I think as a scene, we need to come together and say, you know what, this person is this, this is what this person has done, or this is what this person stands for. Why are you giving them money? Why do you want to give them your attention? Because they don't, it's not worth it to support that kind of music or support those kinds of bands. I mean, Combat Christ is like primo example number one, where a lot of us will not play that. It's like, we're not going to play this band because fuck that. We don't support white supremacy.
Oh God,
So
I can't even believe that. I can't even believe that Combi Christ is even a thing anymore. It's like, wow, you guys are, their music is terrible anyway, but it's just more
yeah.
like, I don't know. It's just like, have y'all ever had any experience with like an actual like a woman that would be okay with this? And if you have, she must be really traumatized from being around men like you that just tell her she's trash all the
And
time.
I feel like the industrial scene has been a lot better about calling that sort of shit out than the goth scene has been. Especially since, what was it, Kinetic? Um,
Yep.
oh gosh, was that 2007, 9, 13? Somewhere in that range?
Times are relevant these days. We don't know.
Yes,
But
it is. Yeah, time has no
but it
meaning.
was Kinetic in Montreal, which was a massive festival that folks went to in the summer. And yeah, Adversary called them out. They called out Knockmare. They
A
called
ton
out
of bands.
Combi Christ
Mm-hmm. Like
and
very,
Yep.
said,
very like
"We,
publicly with a great video.
oh yeah,
Well, then the great
Amazing.
thing is, I to kind of take it back to a shirt that I remember seeing Cozy Fanny Tootie wearing in like an old Throbbing Gristle photo. It said "Women take back the noise," and I actually think we're actually seeing that now. Like, look at EBM groups like Youth Code. They're fucking awesome, and they're not promoting any of that kind of shit. They can make awesome EBM/industrial without having to have any kind of like misogynistic, uh, which clearly because I believe I think it's Sarah is her name, the singer. Clearly, I just love seeing more women in industrial and EBM in general, because then that's going to really start pushing that shit out.
I mean,
Um,
absolutely. I would love to see more women just in goth rock in general, not dark wave, not post punk necessarily, but like goth rock, because it's still misogyny, but it's a less aggressive misogyny. It's the kind of misogyny where it's just like, let's put the woman on a pedestal and never let her get down, and build
yeah.
up this romanticized ideal around, or she's the villain in my tragic lust story.
Yeah, that's what we need, is another white dude crying over how a girl fucked him over in a song. And honestly, so I'd like you to expand on that if you can. As so why specifically do you say you want to see more women in goth rock specifically, like instead of like a dark wave or
Because
something?
I have been searching for, I think the better part of 2020, since I kind of realized, wait a second, can I think of any like core, like middle of the road goth rock bands that are putting out music that are fronted by a woman or someone who has like femme vocals? Not really. It tends to be older cishet white guys, and I harp on this a lot. And I feel like you tend to see, if someone wants to do more of a goth rock style, if a woman wants to do more of a goth rock style, or someone who's femme or non-binary, you tend to find it more in death rock or something that's louder, and I don't know, maybe that's more conductive to letting out all of these frustrations, because it kind of feels like you can't be an angry woman but also sing about magic spells in the moonlight and like bat festooned cathedrals and shit like that.
Like you're kind
I
of painted into a corner where it's like, oh well, women should be more in like the
Or that
ethereal
vocal style,
pretty
it needs to be
music.
like perfect and like operatic and backing, and it just, that's just my perception. I don't have hard data on this.
Hard data knuckle tattoo.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I
uh
mean, because when you think of the front women in goth bands, I mean, the first person to come to mind is Susie Sue. It's super obvious, but as far as newer bands, it's like, well, okay, who can we talk about that's female fronted? That's because I mean, you talk about industrial like Hyde out of Chicago.
oh
I
yeah,
mean, yes, fuck yes,
best
Heather is
fucking
a
live show.
force.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I'm gonna say this just so that I can put this out to the universe, because what I would really love to see when live music can be a thing again is Hyde and Special Interest on the
Yes,
same bill.
That would be so
That
fucking
that
awesome.
needs to happen. I'm putting it out there because the last time I put something out there like that, I had said, you know what needs to be a bill? It would be boot blacks with actors and traders. And then
That is
it
a bill.
happened.
And then it happened.
And then it happened. And well, blacks played with actors, and I got to DJ that show in Toronto, which made me like the happiest kid of all time. And then blacks played with traders, but I wasn't in the country at the time, which tough problems have. But at the same time, I'm like, it happened. It happened.
Yes.
So special interest and Hyde, that is a bill that needs to happen. But as far as female fronted bands, I'm thinking as in the goth rock realm, Rose Garden Funeral Party.
I consider them more towards post punk and shoegaze, so that's personal bias.
Yeah.
There.
Okay.
But you know, and I share that with Azy, but I will say though, because you know, and I've always, I consider them like a dark pop band. They are actually here from my hometown. They're from the same hometown as Blood Bells in Dallas. So I've had a lot of great opportunities to hang out with Leah from that band. Very nice person, very like lovable, touchy, amazing person, just very like, you know, wears who she is on her sleeve. And the thing that I will actually back Mistress McCutchan on with that is Leah kind of embodies the like the kind of the attitude that you see, that kind of like very confident attitude that you really see like reserved, quote, mostly for men on stage. And I really do like that about Leah a lot. It's that very kind of Joan Jett, fuck you, I'm gonna be who I want to be attitude. But you know, no, I think thank you for calling them out. Actually, I kind of felt bad for not talking about Rose Garden on your podcast whenever I was on there a couple weeks ago.
I knew they were from Texas. I forgot they were from Dallas.
Yep, right down the street.
Right.
Actually, and I wanted to say, since we're kind of leaning in more to the gender topics, you know, section, which I do have some things to discuss. So we'll start with Mistress McCutchan on this. Tell me about your experience in a DJ industry that is seemingly dominated by cis men, and what that's been like for you.
Okay. I think when I first started DJing, because DJing in this scene and getting my start in New York, it's a very different thing than here in Toronto, I have to admit, because I felt like in New York there was more support, and there were more opportunities, because the club where I originally started DJing was this little tucked away club in the meatpacking district of Manhattan called Mother. And Mother was a very special place because they had a very strict dress code. They wouldn't let any random weirdos walk in. You had to be there because you were there for Mother. And every week was a different theme, and you'd spend a week planning your outfit to go. But they were very interested in being experimental. They were women. It was a matriarchy. It was very female positive. It was also very gay positive. It was an everybody positive kind of space. And that's what I always felt like a lot of clubs in New York were like. A lot of the people that were running the clubs, it was a very female dominant scene at the time. And a lot of clubs where it was a split, where these spots were being run by women, these spots were being run by dudes. But there was some opportunity for that, and it was great. Coming up to Toronto, people don't want to share, they don't want to share their time slots. Or they don't want to share their clubs, because it's kind of like, hey, you want to DJ down here and I up there, and we could do with it. Everybody's like, no, I'm the resident DJ, that is it. And they don't really share. And the people who've been DJing here in Toronto are mostly guys. Why that is, I'm not 100% sure. I've definitely had one instance where I was DJing out of town and got really talked down to by the main DJ because he had his, really nice setup. and basically he talked down to me as if like, oh, don't wreck my expensive gear, and was trying to explain to me how to do things. And I said, oh, look, you just don't want me to let that go in the red, right? That's what I have to worry about. Don't worry, I'm not here to fuck up your expensive equipment. And then after that, he kind of let it go because I hinted at him like, this is what I need to, I understand. You don't want me to fuck up your equipment. You don't know who the fuck I am from a hole in the wall. So, but you're talking down to me, and I don't think you would have done this to one of my male counterparts. So, yeah.
That's the first thing I thought was that there's no way that if you were a man, whenever that situation happened, he probably would have just been like, "All right, have fun." Which is
exactly.
funny because I'm kind of terrified as like a man going into doing like public DJ stuff, and I'm like scared they're just gonna assume that I know how to work like all the equipment, and I'm just gonna be like, no, help me please. I'm not gonna have somebody there like, you know, doing that. And I hate that. I really hate that you automatically are up against when you're not just like a cis het dude, you're just like up against the wall with everything, and with people just assuming that, you know, you're gonna, you know, that like, do you need me to walk you through this? And it's like, fuck you. You probably been doing your thing longer than that guy had.
I mean, I'm lucky that's only that instance within the scene has only happened once, because I've DJ'd a wedding, a very like a normal people wedding, and but the woman, the bride who wanted me to DJ for her, knew that I would get what kind of music to play for her family, because she was a belly dancer, and her husband really didn't have any opinions on music. And I was like, I know what to play for a wedding so that it could be fun for the whole family, and I'll give you plenty of Turkish belly dance music as well as this other stuff. It'll be great, it'll be fun. When I arrived at the venue, they treated me like crap. The owners were like, I thought you were going to be a man. They were like, the DJ's running late, which I was a little bit. And they were like, I thought you were going to be a man. And if I were only a little bit quicker that night, I should have said, I am. But
flat out.
But that is kind of crazy.
They flat out said to me, I thought you were going to be a man. And I'm like,
wow.
Why? Because I need a penis to work some dials here? Like, come on.
Oh, I remember I went to a gig once to help Maus, my DJ counterpart with Obscura Undead, like set up, and she was having the sound guy was completely ignoring her, and she kept trying to get his attention the entire time for like the half hour, waiting for the guy who she was spinning with, who had invited her for the night. And he shows up, and the sound guy is right there, like, hey, how can I help you? Let me get you some like let me plug in everything here. Do you need help with your gear? Like all of this shit. And Maus came up to me afterwards, and she was just like, Azy, this happened. Is this misogyny? And I said, yes, sweetie, that is misogyny. I know that you have been so used to playing by the boys' rules for so long that you let it pass, but that is not okay. Because she's been spinning for forever. And and that's the thing is, like, if you aren't, I could see people getting sort of like cultured into that idea that that's just normal, like in that sort of experience, and like, oh, maybe the guy's having a bad day or shit like that. And it's just like, no.
I was gonna say, every time I've had a bad day, it hasn't been my instinct to be like, you know what, I'm having a bad day, let's go make a woman feel terrible or a non-binary person feel terrible.
Yeah, you don't get a pass for having a bad day. You're at your job, you need to do your job.
No shit. Amen.
You need to be professional. I just realized I swore a whole lot, and I hope that that's okay. I like
fucking A it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But yeah, you expect a level of professionalism, that you get treated properly, that you don't get talked down to, that, you know, the shit's going to be fine, and you just do your thing. So, because it's like, it could be so easy, but you're right, people get really desensitized because you're used to being treated a certain way that you don't see it any differently.
Right.
They're like, oh yeah, this is misogyny. Thanks.
And a chain of flowers in the chat, who she's the singer of Mermaids, and said earlier that she is a trans woman, said the last time I played a gig, the same thing happened to me. Since I lived as a man for 25 years, it just kind of went over my head.
Wow. No. that's got to be a trip, having kind of seen both sides of that coin, and being able to firsthand be like, hey, this has been my experience. So yeah, I can't even imagine like how unusual that must have been when it happened, because you're not used to it. And the thing that's so weird is like, so, and maybe we can chalk this up to the fact that I am a very typical story where I had like a deadbeat dad that wasn't around. I grew up in a very like matriarchal situation, but weirdly my mom was also like very homophobic, and because Texas, so anytime I'd put nail polish on, she'd be like, I had a boy, not a girl, and stuff like that. So I had to fight that. But it's just weird. It's never occurred to me to be like, oh, that person there, that's not like you know a cis man is going to need my help with something. It's just weird that men tend to do that, and it makes me wonder. That's a whole other episode probably on how men are cultured in general.
Yeah.
But it just really makes me wonder, like what kind of fucked up shit they were like taught growing up, where they don't think that like women can do the same shit. It's just really weird to me.
I think it's odd to find that in the goth scene, because there are a lot of men who are attracted to goth fashion because it has more of a feminizing, like aspect to it.
Yeah,
In terms of,
absolutely.
like playing with gender and androgyny and skirts, which are, typically associated with feminine fashion and things like that.
Oh, I wear, yeah. I mean, and honestly, speaking as someone that just identifies as a dude, like I gotta tell you, like that's was a big draw for me when I was younger, and it still is. In fact, I almost exclusively have what would be called quote women. Number one, clothing shouldn't be gendered, but it would be exclusively called quote women's clothing. Mostly is what's in my closet. This is probably the most like non-feminine item that I own, that I have on. But I mean, it's just like I don't know. I really do like that. That encourages that, and I wonder if that's why you meet a lot of kind of men in the subculture that aren't really like that. People that are more comfortable just being more affectionate or quote feminine or whatever. I personally believe that people should just have equal parts fem and mask energy,
Mm-hmm.
because we're all everything. We're
Yeah.
not all just one thing.
Well,
Well, let's take a look at it. I mean, again, if we look at the roots of goth and how goth grew out of punk, I have two other words to say: David Bowie, because
Yes.
androgyny and the goth scene have always been very linked. It's funny because you're talking about how clothing should not be gendered, and in the before times, I held a an all gender clothing swap, and it was awesome because we just had everybody come and throw their clothes on a table. We sorted by like, these are pants and these are skirts and these are and like, because guys never get clothing swaps, but women do. Women always go to clothing swaps, and we'll share all our clothes and swap, and everything's hunky dory and fun. But because it was an all gendered thing, it was a great experience, because then guys were looking through stuff and we were trying stuff on, and people really appreciated it. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, this clothing, it's like, wait, do you need a piece of clothing that's got a hole for your dick or something? Like,
Yeah,
no, this is fine. This is fine.
that
You
is
can
so
wear it then. It's
true.
fine. It fits. It's fine. You're fine.
I got so tired of feeling like sad and discouraged when I was like 13 or 14, because we would, be at the mall or a department store, and I would want to look through the women's section because there was so much more like sparkly, fun looking stuff over there. And I was forced to, go to the weird gray khaki baggy pants land of like men's stuff. And I remember just being like, remember consciously thinking like, you know what, one day I'm going to shop in the fucking women's section whenever I get to decide what I wear, and not my fucking parents. And to this, yeah, um, to this day, that's still my preference. Are you kidding me? Oh my God. A good crushed velvet skirt is hard to find.
Well, that, and because I mean, it's really funny. going like again, as far as androgyny goes, I realized I really wanted to present myself in a less feminine way and in an androgynous way where you couldn't really tell, because I almost never wear like anything with cleavage and stuff like that because that's not what I'm about. But I think I realized it when I was really really young because I grew up Catholic. And I know when I was about 8 years old, when they were selecting classmates, I went to Catholic school, and when classmates of mine, male classmates of mine, were going off to because they were going to do the altar boy thing, I was like, I want to be an altar boy. I thought it was the cool. Like I was totally into it. I was like, I want to do it. Oh no, you can't. That's when I realized I was like, this is wrong. You're treating us differently because we have different genitals. This is not cool. So that's when I knew shit was bad. I was like, yeah, being a girl is not worth it. And this is shitty. And because throughout my youth, a lot of the clothing that I'd wear looked like I used to weigh 300 pounds and lost the weight, but didn't update my wardrobe.
Yeah.
So a lot of my clothes just hung off of me. And because I was like, I don't want you to be able to tell what kind of body's under here. And fuck, man, fashion is fun and people should wear what makes them feel good.
Exactly. That ties into the whole when people say, "Oh, dress your age." I'm like, who the fuck made that up?
Well,
Like,
there is a really good rule. There's a great rule for I saw this meme and I was like, that is a great rule. I'm gonna go with this. It said what women over 40 shouldn't wear. And what that is the opinions and judgment of others. And I'm like, yes, please. Yes, this is
yes,
correct.
yeah. Well, before we, because I would love to get to a song soon, but I want to actually touch base with Azy real quick. So, your experience, I'm sure, is unique to Mistress McCutchan's. You identify as non-binary,
Mm-hmm.
as they them, and so
Mm-hmm.
have you tell us a little bit about your experience, just kind of in this kind of DJ world, and do you feel that it is dominated by cis men? Have you been treated differently because you are non-binary?
Um, I tend to get treated as a woman because I have huge boobs, and I don't think that people can look past that a lot of the time,
Hmm.
which really fucking sucks. But it also makes it, in my opinion, harder to present as more androgynous or non-binary, just fashion-wise, simply because I feel as though, especially for my size, there like everything is very hyper feminized and geared towards more hyper feminine fashion, especially when you look at specifically like goth targeted like clothing manufacturers and shit like that. But um, so that makes it a bit difficult. But no, I tend to get treated as a woman, and then when I try to correct people, it goes over their heads.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. And I could definitely see that kind of ties into what Mistress McCutchan was saying about, one like wanting to be just like hide your body so you can try to like be addressed the way that you want to be, or people can't just immediately uh slap that gender on you and
Right.
be
I
like,
mean,
boom.
because there's
Because it
sometimes,
really is just body parts and genitals.
yeah, because there's sometimes that I might want to be more feminine, and there are sometimes when I might want to be more masculine, and I feel as though the only way I have to do that is in my makeup.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I can't really do that with anything else that I got going on.
Yeah,
If
I'm
that
really
makes
sorry to
sense.
hear that you feel that way. No, it does make sense. And honestly, you hit the nail on the head right there. So I have described that exact same thing. It's especially when you identify as non-binary, and or if you're like me, where I'm like, okay, like I'm personally comfortable identifying as male, but I'm also a very gender fluid male, where I don't like to just pen down like I only wear this thing. It's just one of those things where I have said that like one day I'm going to feel more masculine, and that's going to be the energy that I feel like putting out there, and there's another day where I am going to feel more feminine. So I completely like relate with what you said, and I'm
Right.
so sorry that you haven't been able to experience things the way
It's
you want
it's
to.
really odd because when I do end up dressing more masculine, like my vest is like I have a vest and it's the most masculine thing I own, or at least it makes me feel the most masculine, and I just end up getting pegged as a butch lesbian.
You're like,
Which
there's no
not a
winning.
bad thing,
It's
but
like,
it's like
yeah,
why is that your first thought?
yeah, like where have we gone as a culture, to where that would be assumed. So
Oh, I think a lot of this is getting normalized though. Like it's slow, but people are understanding the importance of using the correct pronouns
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing that there's a difference between biological sex and gender.
Absolutely. I've
yeah.
seen that in a lot of my friends, especially during quarantine, because not out at the club, they're finally getting used to it in a sober state, um, which I think makes a big difference. And it's not like in a noisy club, and having time to think and have like in-depth and meaningful conversations about like this is how I am and this is why it's important for you to respect that, and that it doesn't matter if you've known me for 30 years or 30 days. If I happen to ask that you change your pronouns for me one day, it's not me trying to be like inconveniencing you or to
Right.
confusing you. It's
Yeah.
something that you should do as a matter of respect for people. So I feel like I've been seeing
Yeah.
a lot more of that kind of empathy and like slow realizations that it's not a passing trend, it's not a fad, it's an issue of respecting people as they are.
Oh, well said.
Yeah.
And I think that on that note, we should we anyone that's watched Subculture Shock before knows that we really do enjoy whenever our wonderful guests pick a handful of songs that are either on topic or that like had a specific meaning to them. So I would love to get Mistress McCutchan to take us into the song of her choice that we're going to play for everybody.
Oh, well, to start off musically, I think we should play a little something from The Moon and the Melodies, which is it's an album that's Cocteau Twins collaborating with Harold Budd, who was an American minimalist composer who passed away recently. This particular track is the very last song on the album, and I really love this song. It sticks with me a lot because it's just this beautiful, lush song, and then at about the 2.5 minute mark, there's just this like burst of energy, and it'll make you feel all your feelings. It's so good, and it's called "Ooze Out and Away."
All right, let's listen.
Okay.
All right.
Are we back?
We are back.
I love that song and that album so much. Um, and wow, yeah, I highly recommend to anybody that is either familiar with Cocteau Twins but hasn't really listened to that, The Moon and the Melodies, definitely check it out because it takes me to a very nice place when I listen to it, and I like music that does that. That kind of can get you into that kind of surreal headspace.
That and Cocteau Twins feel very winter to me. Like
Yes.
I can just imagine a really beautiful snowfall and walking through the snow with headphones on, and your face is getting cold, and if your nose is heavily pierced like mine, all that metal is just getting cold and wet in your nose, and you're like, okay, and it's just and again, it's just so lush and so beautiful.
I love that description, and I think I was telling in our chat before this, I was saying, yeah, there's very few kind of ethereal or shoegaze or whatever you want to call it groups that transport me to where Cocteau Twins and Lycia can transport me. And so like when I'm like, okay, it's time for like a long relaxing drive, or like you said, wintertime is a perfect time for Cocteau Twins or Lycia, I'm just like, all right, it's December 1st, I'm gonna be listening to this shit for a while. Awesome. Well, so let me see if we can kind of jump on to our next thing. So this might be this might cause some very interesting reactions. So what are your do you have any comments or thoughts on people who choose to disengage from social media during times of political and social upheaval? Like, people that are disconnecting or logging off as a viable option for like a predominantly white demographic that have the privilege to just quote turn it off without having to deal with the same struggles in their everyday life that other people have. Do you have like any thoughts on that? Or yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's two sides to this though, because there are folks who spend too much time doom scrolling and they need a break, and it's like, you know what, I need to step away from social media and take a break right now, or I need to not watch the news right now. And I think that that's okay, because as sort of a moment of self-care, like you need to have some balance. You need to, like, if you're very politically active and you're doing things, you need that moment to recharge your batteries so that you're able to continue fighting the good fight. And I think that that's okay. People who are actively engaged, decide to disengage and want to stick their heads in the sand and say, nope, this isn't happening. I don't think this is a problem because I don't see it. That's such a Republican thing to say, because
Yeah.
Republicans tend to like not think it's a problem until it happens in their house, literally. And then they're like, oh, duh. And then it kind of comes together. And it's just so aggravating that it's so hard for people to think about other people. Because we all live, if you're going to live in this little bubble and you're like, well, yeah, everything's cool. And it's like, if you don't know what else is going on outside of your borders, it's really selfish. And yeah, I mean, there being white, there's a level of privilege that you hold, because some people who are white will say, well, I don't feel very privileged, I grew up poor and this and that and and it's like, sure, but you didn't leave your house every day with the fear of getting shot, did you? Or the fear of being if you're a white male, you don't have the fear of leaving your house and or walking home from a club at night and worrying about if someone's going to follow you home or attack you. I find it to be really selfish if people choose not to take any action, because inaction is inaction. It means that you're being selfish, and it means you don't care. And what kind of a human being are you to not care about other people and just to be me? That's the very definition of being selfish. It's shitty.
Yeah. That's very well said. Azy, how about you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, no, that pretty much
Yeah.
encapsulates like a lot of how I feel about it.
Yeah, that's very true.
It makes me think though of I know so many people who go to news sites that specifically only filter for good news. So
Hmm.
that way they can say like, "Oh, I read the news," but they never read any of the bad news.
But it was about puppies. It's like, I mean, we all like puppies, like don't get me wrong,
And
but
sometimes we
Well,
hate puppies.
there's a time for puppies and there's a time for Black Lives Matter,
I
and
mean,
thank you. Yes.
Coffin
Yeah.
Punk
No, and
said
I think it's
in the chat like goths for Trump and only white people could be goths. That stuff I see on Facebook. I'm from
ugh,
the hood, so yeah.
yeah.
I know.
No.
Stuff like that
No.
has made me want to disengage, not just from like social media sometimes, but also from the scene sometimes, because I'm just like, this does not jive with with what I know to be right.
And I guess sadly, we're I'm sure that most of the people viewing this, we're like preaching to the choir kind of a thing.
Oh
And
yeah, we're in an
the
echo
thing that's
chamber.
kind of well, and the thing that well, and that's the thing is like the thing that's a shame is like people kind of always end up back, not always, let me back up here. Oftentimes people do not wish to change their way of thinking. I'm sure that we've all dealt with relatives, that are like that, that are just, no matter how much you throw it in their face and say, look, this is exactly what's happening right now, and they will like physically be like, I'm not acknowledging that, and I think you're just being like a snowflake liberal, and you're
Or
like, no,
or if
I'm
it
trying
doesn't
to
get
preserve, I'm
yeah,
trying to make us better as humans, or we're not going to fucking make it.
or if it doesn't get that attacking, it ends up being something along the lines of, well, my generation didn't have to deal with these issues, so I
Yeah,
don't
because
understand
everybody
or
else that
can't
wasn't
understand.
white, because everyone
Well,
else that wasn't white from your generation was dealing with it while you got to live in a weird bubble.
well, yeah, anybody who refers to the good old days and are thinking about the 1950s, it's like,
It's over
yeah,
for
the good old days for
1950s.
you, the bad old days for a lot of other people who didn't have rights, who weren't able to do certain things. Like, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. But
All right, I got
no,
a complaint about my mic being too quiet, so hopefully that fixes it.
Oh yeah, that's
that's so much
definitely
better.
the
Awesome.
You guys
the
gotta tell me
voice
these
of.
things.
Oh, I love it. Yes, the voice of Thor. I can.
But this is why to stay on topic here. But t- this is why when I've done events, both I work with my partner, the Wasteland, who's also an ex New Yorker. And we've been doing prophecy for it'll be close to 5 years soon. But when we've done that in the before times and we were in actual clubs, we always were working towards creating safe spaces for people so that people could feel welcome no matter who you were, and that if we saw something that wasn't right that was going on, you're out. Like, that's it. We weren't putting up with any shenanigans of the bad kind. Like, you were out of here and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
So that has always been my goals as far as doing things within the scene, to be inclusive and to make things safe for people. I want people to feel like I mean, again, is it so hard that we can't just come together and be cool and have a good time and listen to music we want to listen to? Because people are afraid when they come out that they're going to be judged by the clothes that they wear, that it's not like the right thing, and that they're this and they can't enjoy the music, or they're that and they can't enjoy the music, or what. And it's like,
Oh
uh,
yeah, I'm still like usually, and this is something that comes from just being brutalized when I was younger. For being like being goth in like the mid to late '90s, before you could kind of access that everywhere and see it online. Now everybody's big at grandpa knows what a goth is, or at least he's seen someone with that. But it's just one of those things where I still to this day, like if Blood Bells plays a show, or if Lauren and I go out to a show together, like before COVID, I will be really, really nervous if I am in like full quote feminine clothing, like a full like a dress or like something, and I want to just get into the club as quick as I can because I don't want to be like fucked with, you know. And I really hate that. It's like, yeah, why do people care?
That reminds me of I was going to some club event with a friend of mine, and you know, they're biologically male, but they were dressed, you know, in a short skirt and you know, otherwise very feminine fashion. And we ended up stopping at this truck stop because we had to use the bathrooms, and we were so afraid to go in. So because you never know what's going to happen, you know, between like where you're going and where you're coming from, and the truck stop is just like a you know, an example of one of the worst places you could stop when you are quote unquote being a freak, because you expect it most there. And we didn't get really any comments at all except for really positive comments. But then, you know, from the 50 feet from your car to the club, like 3 people like just scream at you like a bunch of bullshit.
I wonder if that just has to do with most of the time, whenever you're kind of out in those downtown areas, like people have already been drinking and stuff like that. Like maybe at truck stops, it's a lot of just tired, exhausted older people. But you know, I especially at like 2 a.m. But no, it's a really good point. That is always a scary feeling when you know you have to go into a gas station and like full, I'm going to call it regalia because we are all regal whenever we are super dressed up, and it is so scary still. But the thing that I've noticed, again, going back, pointing out my own privilege, if I like just literally carry myself a certain way, I can easily, since I am not a woman or non-binary, or I can very easily identify as more masculine in what I'm wearing. Usually people do the opposite, where if it's like, they're like, oh, well, that guy must be crazy, I don't want to fuck with him, you know? And I'm just like, that's the advantage of being like a 6 foot tall, like white male, which not everybody has the advantage, you know?
I usually catch more shit when I'm projecting masculine energy at a gas station than if I'm just not. It's terrible.
Yeah. Well, have you so actually, Mistress McCutchan, you know, I wanted to point out too, I like seeing that there are like people from, because you always see those memes where they're like, oh, Gen X is watching the millennials, and you know, the boomers fight, and Gen X is always in the middle, just like, haha, we don't care, we're apathetic, you know, or whatever. And I really do like seeing a lot of like people from Gen X like saying, no, a lot of us were fighting this shit too, you know. And it's very interesting because I've noticed that divide. Like, do you notice any divide from like other Gen Xers that you know that are just like, I don't fucking care, like whatever, like, or is that just like, as far as like being involved, let me clarify, as far as like Gen Xers being really involved in like you know, the current political climate? Do you know people on both sides from Gen X that are just like, some are just like whatever, and others are trying to say, no, like, we've been speaking up about this for a long time?
I think it's a mixed bag, because I've seen on one side where people are like, you're getting older, you'll mellow out with age. And it's like, no, if anything, we're getting angrier because this is all bullshit that this is still going on. Mm. And on the other side, yeah, there are some people who are like, what else are we going to do about this? Because I mean, yeah, Gen X has been pretty motivated to speak out and do things. So it's kind of shitty when I see these memes that are like, yeah, Gen X is just sitting in the middle going, meh. But when we talk about Gen X, I mean, Gen X is my generation, and we are a group of people that are kind of, right now, we're this in-between group that is watching our parents age and you know, getting closer to that side of the timeline, and they're raising kids and can also be parents and such. So we're that just in between, and it's a lot to handle. Again, there needs to be a balance, because I think it's important to stay angry and to take action and do things, because people don't know what to do. they're like, well, I want to, I want to be politically active. What does that actually mean? What should I be doing? And there's a lot of different things you can be doing. And again, it's, what is your appetite for this? What are you able to do? And what can you do? Because not all of us can go to a protest. I mean, if you're, working in corporate land, you can't stop in the middle of your day and go run out to a protest necessarily, but you can fucking go donate to the protesters to make sure that they have bail money if they get arrested. You can make sure that you put your money towards really good causes. If you can afford like $5 a month to the ACLU to help them fight the legal battles for immigrants coming into the US and such, that's a very good idea. If there's means that you can donate, if there's just ways to stay politically aware of what's going on in the world so that you're not just in your little la bubble, because I'll watch the news, watch various news sources to get your information so that you know what's going on in the world. One of the sources in my household tends to be the Young Turks. That's on fairly regularly in our house but then again, in the US, you describe me as a radical left, which is bullshit because radical left it's very frustrating between the Democrats and the Republicans. The Republicans are a bunch of assholes, and the Democrats are like, okay, we'll do what you want, just don't be mean to us. And then there's progressives. And that's really kind of where I am politically, because I'm an American who lives in Canada. I am a Canadian resident, but I still vote in the U.S. I mean, AOC is my lady. I'm in her riding, so that's who I got to vote for. And I love her. She's great. She's really like, never has there been a need to see a woman reach 35 so fast. It's like, please run for president, AOC, please.
Yes. So true.
But it's important to be politically active and just stay aware and go to news sources that aren't Fox and find out what's going on in the world. And then on Fridays, there's an Instagram account called Bat World Sanctuary, and on Fridays they post Bat Booty Friday and their little bat butts. So then you can have balance. You can totally have balance. Watch the news, stay informed, stay angry, look at Bat Booty.
Yes. Oh my God. I want to I think my next band project's going to be called Bat Booty Fridays.
Seriously, their little butts are so cute.
That is so cute.
It's totally ridiculous. And you need fluffy animal pictures in your day. I think it's great. I think it's important, but don't overlook what's happening in the world when innocent people are being shot and killed. When, fucking 17-year-old who goes and shoots protesters and then walks away, and the police are like, oh yeah, go ahead, we'll take you home. Like, fuck off. Like, it's insane. And I mean, again, being in Canada, we're watching American news very closely, which is weird, but it's like the whole world is watching American news because it's such a trickle down effect.
Oh, it's a reality show
going on. It's the worst reality show ever, because you get an asshole like Cheeto Hitler, and it emboldens all these other assholes, because here in Ontario we have fucking Doug Ford is our premier, our provincial, the premier of Ontario. And you may not know that name being American, but you may have recognized his brother was the crack smoking mayor of Toronto, Rob Ford.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, he's a giant asshole, and they're all a bunch of assholes, and all these conservatives that are assholes are just being emboldened by Cheeto Hitler. And then it's happening all over the place, not just in the U.S., between U.S. and Canada, but then you go over to the U.K. and then they've got some shenanigans happening over there that are not good shenanigans. So, I'm getting all excited now. My partner's laughing in the corner.
No, I was going to say, I love this because whenever I was on your podcast, It's Midnight Somewhere, I started to do the same thing, but we had to keep me on like a different topic. And we literally were like, oh, I can't wait to be able to talk about this. So I love being that you have a platform to talk about this. And I love that. I love that you're getting excited about it. because this is all, it's all very valid. And um, I in the chat, I am ruined earlier had said, I'm just getting weirder as I get older, and kind of going back to how you said, oh, when some people get older, they stop caring. Well, the thing is, I stopped caring, but in the way of what other people think about me, and in the way that I care about how, if I like upset other people because I'm calling them on their bullshit. So to quote the great Richard Hell, he said, when I was, he's quoted as basically, I'm paraphrasing at best, but he was basically like, when I was younger, I wanted to go out into the world and say, hey world, look at me. But now that I'm older, I realize that I should sit back and it's the world itself that's interesting. And you should take a look and have a look. And I think now that I'm 37, I am having a look at the world. And that's why I'm going, you know what? I'm going to start fucking doing something, because I'm not just on my own trip anymore. I realize that there's things for like a greater good that hopefully we can have impact on. We can do something about it now while we're alive. And hopefully by the time we're like long dead, that those little things we're doing now are going to really help.
Long dead yet, unless our planet burns out.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
That's inevitable.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I keep saying if I make it to 80 after my 80th birthday, I'm going to start wearing a tiara every day, because who's going to stop me?
Oh, no one.
Yes,
no
absolutely
one
no one. And actually, this is a really good part to get our next song going. So, Mistress McCutchan, you should lead us in to your magical tiara of the next song.
Oh, well, magical tiara. Well, actually, that's a nice way to put it, because the next song I want to introduce you to comes to you from one of my best friends who I miss so much in Brooklyn. He and I talk every day. He is an incredibly talented musician by the name of Derek Rush. He currently released the 25th anniversary of his project December on CD. Back when I met him, that it came, Hope for Nothing was the name of the album, and that came out around the time that I met him. I was a child, so that was like 25 years ago. But the song that I really want to play for you, that's another project of his, is called Dream into Dust. And I remember playing this at Mother one night in the opening of the night, and him hearing it on large speakers, he went, oh God. Because when I love playing musicians' own music to them when they're in the club, because then they kind of freak out. They'll be like, oh, this is pretty. Oh, wait, this is me. This is me. So I did that to him with this particular song. And so this is his project, Dream into Dust. And the name of the song is How the Roses Burned.
Can no longer hide.
Okay, we're back.
I
Is
know
that
I
correct?
cut the tail off that, but that's all right.
That was
This just means people need to go to Chthonic Streams, and this is where you can purchase Dream into Dust and look for December as well. December in December. Gotta do it.
yes. No, that
Gotta
was
plug my
very-
friend.
Yes, absolutely. And honestly, I'd never heard their stuff, so that was good
lovely.
from what I heard. Yeah, it was very lovely. So while we're on the topic of music, what are I'm really excited about this question. So, what are some examples to Mistress McCutchan, to you, about what are some examples of goth bands that are waxing political that the listener might not be aware of? Like, what bands stick out in your mind as being, very politically goth, and kind of showing that goth is political mentality?
Right off the top of my head, I would say the Bellwether Syndicate. William Faith has been an activist for a very, very long time, and the latest single that they came out with, Republic, is pretty blatant in the lyrics, as far as to paraphrase the lyrics, because now of course I'm like blanking, but it shouldn't be us and them, it should be you and me. And I'm like, fuck yes, just that's everything right there. So I'd say Bellwether Syndicate. I also am really stoked about Nox Navocula. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But because what was cool about them at one point, all this Bandcamp stuff is going on, and I love the fact that Bandcamp is working so hard towards truly supporting musicians and giving them this platform to sell music and actually see money on their music. I think one of the Bandcamp Fridays, they were like, yeah, we've been kind of busy because we're marching for Black Lives Matter and we're doing this, that, and the other. And I was like, yes,
Yep.
that's awesome.
Wearing it out like that, like, make no bones about it.
Absolutely.
And I love that. And I'm so glad you shouted out Bellwether Syndicate, because they are one of my favorite new bands, and both William and Sarah are just wonderful people. And obviously, they both have such rich backgrounds. Sarah with the Scary Lady Sarah DJ. She's just a I'm trying to think of how to put it. She's just like a legend, like a DJ legend. And William Faith with like Faith the Muse, and he's in Conflict and Mephisto Walls. It's
Christian
just
Death, absolutely.
Christian Death, the big one. So yeah, that's so cool, and I love that there are also bands now that are just kind of they're like, we're not going to separate these ideals from our music. We're not going to be private about it.
And the other band I have to mention would be Tears for the Dying, which is based out of
Adria's amazing.
Athens, Georgia. I mean, they wrote a song called A Cab.
Well, yeah. How
Oh,
much more
yeah.
blatant can you get?
Well, that album was called What Memories?
Yes.
It's fabulous. No, Adria is a powerhouse.
Yeah, big love.
Well, Azy, I know that you're also you're wonderful, because you're also interacting in the chat, and I'm so glad, because I'm sure people are saying some great things, and I'm sorry if I've been addressed, or if Mistress McCutchan has been addressed. We haven't had a chance to answer. I just don't have I don't have a way to really like text.
Oh, it's mostly just been about the topic, and I just read the best ofs.
Excellent. Well, Azy, why don't you jump in on this? Like, are there any examples other than what Mistress McCutchan shared of like goth bands that that are particularly politically poignant to you, and are waxing very political? I just like the term waxing, so I wanted to say it.
I mean, I can give you a ton of like recent death rock releases, because like that's what I'm most all about. But like, you have Medusa Stare on their self-titled debut that talks all about indigenous struggles. You have, and they're from the Pacific Northwest. You have Las Reinas de los Condenados, who are from, I believe, Peru, who also talk a lot about colonialization and indigenous rights in their lyrics, and these like very important topics. But then in other parts of the world, from Germany, you have Totenwald and Cierne, and from the UK, you have the Creeping Terrors, and they talk so much about globalization and international politics in a way that's really meaningful. I mean, hell, the Creeping Terrors, off their latest album, they put their songs in multiple different languages, specifically with the intent of so that it is as accessible as possible.
Wow.
Globally for like major spoken world languages. And yeah, they talk a lot about what we were talking about before, and that was the trickle effect of American politics into everywhere fucking else, and the dangers of, not the dangers, but like the kind of co-opting of all the good things about like mass media into basically thought policing machines and shit like that.
Wow, that was a very eloquent answer. Wow, both of y'all are wonderful. Thank you so much for that insight, because you're really making known that this is a very alive and well. There's a very, very healthy political climate in Goth right now, which is great. And in fact, you're making me think that this might be the most politically active that the Goth community has been, especially in music. So that's awesome.
Oh, we've had to be. I mean, we're in a world that's never been so polarized. I mean, it just keeps growing further and further apart, because again, this goes back to you mentioning having a conversation with someone who's then like, nope, that's not really a problem, or this isn't, like, we need to be able to have conversations so that we can bring these things to light, and that people who may just be ignorant and not realize, yeah, this is real, and this is a thing, and this is a thing, and you should know about this. I mean, once somebody's just like shut down and you can't change their mind, you can't change their mind, and then you might as well talk to a brick wall. But having some of these conversations, and just stuff like this, even sitting down and talking about this on the channel, and having a greater discussion, hopefully this just kind of has a ripple effect of its own, where people discuss like, hey, what could I be doing? Am I aware of what's going on? What could I be doing? What could I be doing better?
Right.
Who should I be listening to?
Even if it's something as basic as like, well, maybe I'll listen a little bit more closely to the lyrics of my favorite band like next time. Something so basic as that, and then being just like, wait.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, with people in my position that are musicians, that especially right now, Blood Bells, we're writing new material, and this has been very inspirational for me to be like, hey, because I'm such a stream of consciousness writer that it can be taken in different directions. I've had people ask, like, oh, what does this mean? I'm like, really, I don't know. I was feeling a little manic, and I just wrote this. So it was, so basically, this has inspired me to really kind of focus on trying to, get across more direct messages in our music as well. So that's been nice. We've been very direct on social media. We proudly lost several followers whenever all of the Black Lives Matter stuff was coming to a head back in the summer, and we posted a thing about how, like, this is where we stand politically, and I was glad. I was like, good, the people that unfollowed us on social, that we don't want you to listen to us anyway, if you're gonna think that we're being ridiculous by making a political stance. That's what I fucking have a punk rock background, and I have a death rock background. So it's like, yeah, what the fuck? What do you think this is all about? So, and of course, a lot of it's for fun. But again, going back to the music thing, there's a time for puppies and there's a time for political things. There's the two P's. Or bat booty. And actually, let's go ahead and use this opportunity to jump into another song. If you'd like to take us into something else.
Sure. Let's the next song that I want to play, I think this is one of the essential albums everybody should have this year. that came out called Houses of Heaven. Fucking solid out. You know when you put on an album and you listen to it and you're just, you just put it on and you let it go, and every song is a banger.
Yes, I love that.
This is that album, and this is why I would recommend go to Bandcamp, go grab this. Shoot, I forgot which song I picked in advance.
You chose Dissolve the Floor.
There we go. There's so many good songs on this album. I keep leaning towards this one, and then I'll be like, no, I really like you. No, I like you. You're my favorite. No, you're my favorite. So Dissolve the Floor. Here's what we want.
What would we do? Well, I feel dumb because I'm all like the pop culture person. Lauren, my wife, is definitely a big like.
Hey, Clint.
We're back. It's
Yeah.
In fact, actually, I was going to say we kind of, and everyone else might be interested to jump in on this in the chat at some point. But yeah, we were discussing like, is anyone like the age where they've made like a pop culture or literary reference to somebody, and you're like, oh, they're told this is like I'm nailing it, and you're getting ready to high five them, but then you have to self five because your age shows. And they're like, what's that? I don't get what you're referencing.
I think I might have broke something because now people can barely hear you.
Did you break something?
Maybe.
Hang on.
Okay, keep talking. Keep talking.
I'm gonna keep talking. Hello.
Pop culture
Hello.
reference.
Pop culture reference. Pop culture reference. Can everybody hear my pop culture reference? Hello.
It should be good. I think I
Hello.
fixed you.
Okay. Is everybody good? There you are.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Thank you very much, Bone Daddy Bruce. I appreciate that.
Yeah, way to be
Let's
real
see.
quick on calling me out for my shit.
I'm gonna be I'm trying to think. So I'm pretty much oh yeah, there's kind of like one more on my list that I wanted to bring up, and then it's just gonna be freeform, which is what I like. So what is something we can start with Azy on this one? I would love to is there anything that you feel is underrepresented in goth music or music from the subculture that you'd like to see more representation of? You were kind of talking about that earlier, so maybe we can expand on that. Something that you think is underrepresented in our subculture in music that you'd like to see more of.
Oh yeah, I keep talking about that. I think I brought it up like 4 or 5 times, and that's simply women's voices.
Yep, you got it. And Mistress McCutchan, how about you?
Again, I have to agree. More women's voices and more diversity in the scene.
Nice.
Because
Okay.
being inclusive, I think, is really important.
No, diversity is strength.
Agreed.
Well, in fact, oh, I'm so glad you said that, because that makes me be like, oh, I'm so excited to bring this up. So, we were having a discussion before, and I know Azy's going to have quite a bit to say about this. I'm putting you on the spot. I'm making you talk about it. So let's talk about, and I obviously want to hear mostly from y'all, because I'm a white dude, so I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm going to talk about what feminism is, because I'm not I'm not the demographic. So I would like to hear how do you feel feminism is maybe wrongly represented in culture, or who has mostly got the mic on feminism, and what needs to be more represented within that community to really make it inclusive, instead of separating, this kind of person represents feminism versus this kind of person that doesn't.
Am I starting?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Didn't Duck Duck Goose one of us in?
Yeah, you didn't duck goose us.
Oh,
in,
well,
so
I guess I was suggesting that Azy would have a lot to say about it. So I would like to actually, if we can, because we were talking about how you felt that a certain class was represented more
Yes.
in feminism. So let's talk about that.
So what Clint is referencing is I went on a very long text rant to him about how I feel as though too much of modern feminism, specifically academic feminism, tends to focus on the middle class white woman, and it's that brand of feminism.
Karens.
Huh?
Karens.
Yeah, Karens. And how it's that kind of feminism that ends up being a failure and doesn't lend itself to true equality for women, because it's not just gender that plays into inequality. There are institutionalized systems of discrimination, racism, bigotry, all of that shit, and you can't just stop and say like, okay, white women are now equal, all women are equal. It doesn't fucking work that way.
Yeah.
And I feel as though that is far too much of the prevailing attitude when people say that they are feminist, is because especially in subculture spaces that tend to be predominantly white, women or I'm biologically female, so I'll lump myself in there because it's people look at me as a woman, and I understand that. We tend not to then think of, well, we're all freaks here, but now that women are equal, meaning white women are equal, then like a woman of color has the same equality, or a trans woman has the same equality. It simply doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah, feminism has to be intersectional to work, because it's not like, well, we want equality, but not for you. So that gets to be a problem. for sure. Because what really gets infuriating is when I hear, and I mean, I know this has happened within the local scene here, people who can't get it through their skull that trans women are women too. And it's like, being a woman is not necessarily about what, it's not about what's between your legs. It's who you are. And if you can't, like, for fuck's sake, why can't we just treat each other with respect and get this shit together? I mean, we're still fighting some of the same fights. Because I mean, I remember 20 years ago, people didn't want to call themselves feminist because it there was this really awful trope of like feminists as sort of this very butch looking woman, and they hated men.
Yeah, there's a
And
comment in the chat specifically about that.
yeah, and you absolutely you didn't want to be called feminist. You're like, yeah, I believe in equality. I can't call myself feminist. I don't want to use that label. So, but at the same time, being feminist is being who you are and just being treated equally to everybody else. Period. I mean, it should be so simple. So I can't get it why people can't get that right now. Like, again, it's 2020. If anything, because we're stuck in this time period that we're in, and you know, here we are, pandemic, and everybody at home, and we're not able to function in society as normal, like we used to. There's a lot of really good things that have come out of that, in that it's brought people together, and I can only hope that people will listen to each other and be able to treat people respectfully, and that this sort of tragedy of the loss of our normal lives can hopefully bring us together and not tear us apart, because this whole year has sucked so hard, and it's not an easy time for a lot of people. And I mean, again, I'm in a place of privilege because I'm working in a job where I can work from home, and I do everything because I'm involved with tech. I can do everything that I need to do from my home and online and this and that. I mean, I'm not struggling to feed myself or struggling to keep a roof over my head. One of the things that's been happening locally is a local builder created all sorts of shelters for homeless people during the pandemic, because there's been a big tent city that's been happening in a nearby park, and people are getting kicked out of their homes because they're really struggling hard. And the government's trying to say, well, we're going to try to evict these people. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? It's a Canadian winter, uh, and people are homeless. Where are these people going to go? They're clearly safer in the park than being in a shelter where COVID is spreading in a really great way in the shelter. So, oh, I totally went off topic. I realized I rambled onto a thing, but
That's
but
what
again,
that's what this conversation's all about, though.
but again, like, why is it that we can't just respect each other and treat each other equally? Like, we don't all have to think the same things. We're not the Borg, but at the you know, like, have your thing, have your opinions. We can have lots of different opinions. When it comes to discriminating against other people, that's you're not allowed to have that opinion anymore. You can have differences on what you're eating for dinner and where you want to go on vacation, but when you start talking about things that are really harmful to others, no, just fuck you, no.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, you were saying earlier, you know, why can't people just, you know, try, you know, almost essentially live and let live, and stop coming down on people for just trying to, you know, stand up for what's right and equal. And I actually think so much of this, I think a good statement is just feminism should just be natural. It should not be something, it shouldn't be something that's debated. It should be something that, especially like privileged white men like myself should be able to be like, oh, absolutely. I can definitely see where the history is here and why it's important, why it's necessary to have this mentality. And the thing is, and I'm sure we've all met like the kind of cis hetero male that will like without you prompting it, he'll be like, I'm a feminist. And you're like, okay, usually those guys are the worst, the people that are like the least feminist that I've ever met.
Who put it in their Facebook profile bio?
They put it on their Facebook profile because they're doing that shit. And I'm just kind of like, okay, well, I'm not going to believe you until I see that you're just living that way. It should just be, it should be so natural to you that it shouldn't pop into your head to just have to like throw that in somebody's face and say, hey, it's like, just fucking live it, man. Yeah. So
actions speak louder than words. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I always cringe whenever, and it's never failed that every man that I've met that has like been adamant about being a feminist always proves me wrong. That, and it's just like, you don't got to be adamant about it, just live it, and I'm gonna see it, so that's what's important. And so I think
I'm a feminist. I believe in freedom of women's bodies, so let's fuck right now.
So exactly. I'm a feminist. Does that turn you on?
Right.
Like it's like, stop fucking, like stop fucking. Let's not like Arnold. Stop fucking. Shut up. But it's like stop always sexualizing people with vaginas, and stop always putting a dollar sign on everything, are my two big like things like that that I get so mad about. It's just like, stop doing that. But anyway, so but I digress.
It's tough. I mean, we're in late stage capitalism, which is the true religion of the world, and it's tough.
Yeah, and actually, that is a really good time to. I know we're blowing through the songs. That's kind of how we always do it. We'll kind of start. We'll do like one song in the first hour, and then it's just like, all right, bam, 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 bam. So is there another song you would like to take us into right now?
Yes. Yeah. And again, the conversation's just been flowing. So then it's like, oh wait, let's take a song break. So this next pick is another like essential album I think everybody should buy this year, because again, it's something you put it on and every track's a banger. And I'm kind of guilty of playing this song quite a bit because I just it's like pure sex on a dance floor. It's such a good song.
Ooh, I love that description.
And it comes from Black Angel, and the track is called Want for More.
Yes.
Give me a second. I'm still loading it up.
We're still loading it. Yeah.
Pure sex on a dance floor.
Pure sex on the dance floor.
Right, you done?
That's an industrial track. Pure sex on the dance floor.
sun is all I see. Some say it's mere debauchery. I'm lost inside your mind. The shell of me I leave behind. My wings will start to soar, and then I made you beg for more.
And of course,
Okay.
right now is when a bathroom hits me. So that's fun. I have the bathroom.
Ah,
I just wanted to let everybody know that.
Thanks.
So I'm available for children's birthday parties. We can talk about
as long as you don't take your microphone to the bathroom, we're fine.
yeah, it's like
She's like,
like
"Come
in a
on, guys."
movie when someone leaves their they're speaking at like a convention and they leave the microphone on when they go to the bathroom. And
Oh.
everyone's-
I just think of Leslie Nielsen. I can't
Yes,
remember
that's
which
what it was.
movie. Yeah.
It's
Leslie
Naked
Nielsen.
Gun. It was the Naked Gun. Oh my
Yes.
goodness. I love that stupid humor. Oh my god.
I'm
so
not
I-
above a good poop joke either. Go
Never.
pee, and we'll figure this out.
Okay, I don't want to come back to like a Garth situation in Wayne's World where you're like, I'm having a good time.
Oh.
Not.
Leave me.
It's all good. It's all good.
Why did he turn off his camera? Is he going with him? Oh God.
Shenanigans. These are good
Shenanigans.
shenanigans to have. He's not wearing pants. That might be it.
I
You
bet
don't want
that's
to stand up in front of the
exactly
camera if you're not wearing pants. That was
Mm.
one of the things that was mentioned. I was trying to figure out what to wear, and my partner Justin's like, "Hey, you don't have to wear pants," and I'm like, "This is true." Although I wear a dress, and I have slipper socks on, but you
So
can't
you
see
don't have
those.
to wear pants.
And I'm not wearing pants. I'm just wearing dress.
Perfect.
It's fine.
I'm still wearing my shoes and I don't need to. It's
You wear
fucking
shoes? What are
cold.
shoes?
They're those things that I have to wear when I go outside so the hot pavement doesn't scorch the bottoms of my feet.
I've forgotten about shoes.
Have you forgotten about outside?
Yes, but now it is also cold as fuck, so I don't need to go outside.
It's 56 degrees here in Florida and I'm so cold and miserable.
It's -5 up here.
I know. I'm so spoiled because I'm from Wisconsin. Used to have no problem with it. Lived in Hawaii for a while. Got really used to the warm weather. And then it never gets cold. And come to Florida where it gets cold occasionally and I cannot fucking deal.
Oh God, I love the cold. I could live in overcast and
Oh, overcast is
40
nice.
degree weather.
And what
Yeah,
degree?
-4.
Ooh. So actually, that's a really good since we're just kind of on this lovely weather topic. As a quick break, it's bat booty time, and we're going to talk about some weather real quick. It's currently partly cloudy, and
Let's talk about the
Mistress
weather.
Mistress McCutchan, do you since you were born in the States, you're now living in Canada, do you know both the metric system and the whatever the fuck we're doing system over here? Like, have you familiarized yourself with both, so like you can talk Celsius and Fahrenheit?
I've kind of forgotten about Fahrenheit. I strictly go by Celsius.
Someone's already pointed
It
that
just
out in
seems
chat.
easier. But with metric, I'm still I'm still measuring things in inches as opposed to centimeters. But the funny thing about temperature is that when it's really cold out, people describe it in Celsius. And when it's really hot out, people describe it in Fahrenheit, because it just sounds so much more dramatic and so much worse.
It's like factual hyperbole.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, we'll have a summer day where it's 34 degrees, and that's fucking hot. That's pretty hot, but
Okay.
it doesn't sound impressive. But if you say it's 100 outside, whoa, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, I've got a friend. I lived in Australia for a time, and they used the metric system. And so when I was catching up with them the other day, I was like, oh my god, it's so cold here. It's like 30 degrees outside, and she's like, the fuck are you talking about? What, 30 degrees? Oh, and then she caught her. She's like, oh, you're talking about fucking Fahrenheit. I don't know what the fuck that is. That's my best Australian accent. That's one of the accents I can't do. What is the deal? So to kind of get back on the political topics we were discussing during the musical break, I kind of said that I wanted to touch base on this and get some chat feedback. So I think that we need to normalize men calling out other men on their misogynistic bullshit in groups of men, especially, because that is where it gets
Especially in groups of men when women are not around.
Yep. And I got to tell you, there have been things where we've watched like I've watched with my spouse on television, and it'll be like a group of guys talking. Like we were watching a show with like a group of teenage guys talking the other day, and she was like, oh my god, dude, guys don't really talk to each other. I was like, oh, it's fucking bad. Like, it is. If you think that what you've heard is terrible, it's 10 times worse whenever the guys start like locker room talking. And I can't tell you how many uncomfortable conversations I've had to have that each and every one of them are so worth having, because even if they don't learn anything, I like knowing that I made them uncomfortable and check their shit for at least a minute, and say, hey, this is not cool. So yeah, I basically just wanted to address that it needs to become a thing that people that identify as male need to be calling out other men about this shit, because we're not going to get anywhere if you're pretending to be a certain way out in public, and then behind closed doors you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna say this really fucked up shit. I have had strangers behind me at the grocery store, or at like, especially the fucking hardware store. I shit you not, it's happened at least 10 times in my life, where if there's like a female, like a woman, I hate saying female.
Please don't.
I
don't
hate
like
that.
that either.
If there is like if there's just like a woman cashier, or like a fucking cashier that's attractive, they'll lean in, and I don't fucking know these people, and they'll lean in and be like, oh man, you check that out, and they'll be like, it is so oogie to me, and I'm just like, that happens all the time. And I don't know if anyone else can share like a similar story about that, or if there's some like people in here that have had that happen, where you've called out other men and it's been an uncomfortable conversation, but you know, it's worth doing.
Why would you say that to a stranger?
Oh, it's so creepy. Men are so creepy with other, I know, like I have to fucking
Because
sell,
it's not even
like I have to sell strange men being creepy to y'all.
right. Well, because it's not even like the guy's leaning in to say, hey, she's really pretty. He's probably focusing in on a particular body part and going, hey, check that out. And it's just so gross, because again, it's dehumanizing. It's like, well, of course, you know, of course we can say this. We're dehumanizing this person, and so they're not a person. We're allowed to talk like this. It's like, dude, you can't belittle half the population and expect to get anywhere. Although, to add on to your point about calling stuff out, because I mean, when you hear people say, not just men speaking up and standing up to other men who are making belittling comments about women, but even saying, when hearing somebody make a comment that's racist, or that's transphobic or that's homophobic. I think calling that stuff out is really important.
Absolutely.
To be like, really?
I think,
Do you realize what you're saying?
And honestly, and if there's anyone here that's watching that might not be comfortable being that forward, the best thing you can do, if you're just like, man, I don't know if I could directly say that, the best thing you can do, that I actually learned from my bandmate and spouse Lauren. She goes, one of the best things you can do is kind of question it. If they're like, oh yeah, like those type of people, be like, no, I don't. Like, what do you mean by that? Question it and make them say what they're talking about. Because if you're not comfortable with being like, what did you say? Trust me, if you just ask, say, no, I don't follow. That really makes people have to explain what they mean. So.
Yeah, I mean, standing up for people who are marginalized and who are being belittled. I think I would love to see that be a normalized behavior, because it is hard. It depending on who it is, that you can say that, and be like, hey, not cool, you can't say that. Because on the flip side of that, people are like, well, they're just policing everything and and it's like
I meant it as a joke, and they know it's a joke, and then they're like, oh god, that happened with my husband recently. He made a homophobic joke to his friends, and I looked at him and I said, that's not cool. You don't say shit like that. And he's just like,
good for you.
And he's just like, oh, you know I don't think that way, and my friends know I don't think that way, and I'm arguing with him in front of his friends, and I say, it doesn't fucking matter. You make these jokes, you normalize it, and it doesn't matter if you don't think that way. Don't make the fucking joke.
Yeah.
And I also really hate and I hate to pay, and unfortunately there's a piggyback on that, where if you do that and you're like non-binary or a woman, they're going to be like, as soon as you leave the room, sometimes they're going to be like, oh my God, what the fuck is wrong with her? Like, you're immediately painted as irrational or crazy or something. Whereas if you're a man, it's like, oh, he's being assertive. And it's like, no.
Yeah,
no.
I know.
It's really a fucking problem.
Yeah. Well, that can be a thing in the workplace of how women, when women assert themselves, are seen as being a bitch, while men asserting themselves makes them like, whoa, he's in control and he knows what he's talking about. It's like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hate that. I got to tell you, I have been, most of the men in my life, and this is not painting general, I'm just saying from my experience, the men in my life have only let me down. They've only and this is speaking for most of them, have only disappointed me, have been the ones that haven't shown me how to be strong and be a good person. It's always been the non-binary and women in my life, that the non-binary people and the women in my life that have showed me, like, that have actually been the stronger, more resilient people. And it's like, so we really do need to fix this. And I guarantee you that I am speaking for a lot of dudes when I say you probably had a dad that let you down, or have had a friend that's really let you down. So until we change that, I'm always going to say that women and non-binary people are the strongest people that I have ever had the pleasure of knowing. So
yeah. Okay, I want to propose something. I propose
a toast.
Toast. Makes me think of Rocky Horror. A toast, and everybody.
Yes.
Bread.
Oh my God.
All the bread gets thrown.
Oh my! I miss going to Rocky so much.
That was like sophomore year of high school for me. Every weekend, Rocky Horror, and then going to the diner afterwards to eat disco fries. Those were good days.
Oh, they were good old days.
What I wanted to propose before we went off on that thread, I think we should drop in another song here. I would like a washroom break, because we call it the washroom up here.
Why are you washing in it? I don't get it. As in washroom.
I also have another sort of politically charged topic that I would love to hear your opinions on as well, in regards to the environment, because we've been talking a lot about respecting others and standing up for the rights of others, but without standing up for the earth, we're all going to get super fucked, and not in a fun way. So I think we should put on The song that I chose that I wanted to put on comes to us from Alter de Fae. They put out a new EP in October, and there's a really fantastic Halloween show that they did that I believe you can find and watch the replay of that live stream. And if you don't know Alter de Fae, they've been around since the 80s. They're death rock from San Francisco. They're incredible. And the song is called I Want It.
So much respect to you for that is what I'm trying to say.
Respect all around. Sorry, we're back.
We're back, and we're back. What do you have for our guest, handsome Dan? So that's about as sporty as you're going to hear me. I don't know anything about sports. So except unless it's the Huey Lewis in the News album. Am I right? So all right, so we are kind of coming to the end of the show here, but we do want to touch base on the topic that Mistress McCutchan brought up right before the music break. So let's get into it. Let's talk about why it's so important to be environmentally conscious, even if you're doing little things to doing huge things. Let's get into that. What do you have to say about that?
Well, because again, I'm not sure how much this relates directly to the goth scene, but I want to put this at the top of people's minds as far as taking action and thinking about these things, because yes, while all these issues are at the forefront of our minds all the time, because we're with Black Lives Matter, with the class war, and with all these different issues, people's rights, they're very important, and you're allowed to care about more than one thing. I'll say that, number one, because some people are like, oh my God, how do I keep track? It's like, you're allowed to care about more than one thing. There's a lot of stuff to deal with. So strap in, get ready to deal with this, because you got to be informed. Get some bat booty on Friday from the Bat World Sanctuary, because they're cute, and then stay on track with what you need to be doing. And if we don't handle our issues environmentally, we're all going to we're going to be in big trouble, because I mean, even now, I mean, where you live in the southern US, I mean, it's evident. You can see the weather patterns and how the climate is changing, and how this is going to affect everyone. So what do people do about it? I think there's so many different actions you can take, from small actions to going to the protests and taking something more substantial. I think people should be writing letters to their people in Congress, or write to your MP to make sure that things are taking place, and make sure that laws are being passed, because people are forgetting about this stuff. They're like, oh, but this, and oh, wait, oh, because I mean, the past 4 years with Trump have been such a newsreel of like, great, what crazy shit thing is happening today. And it is really difficult to keep up. But at the same time, what can you do that will help you take action against the planet burning up to a crisp, because things are not looking good right now?
Well, the great thing about all of those, like writing your congressperson, is that there's so many form sites out there where all you have to do is enter in your information. It'll auto-generate a letter and spam their office for you. So it's so fucking easy too.
It was
super easy.
It really is. And the thing that will surprise you actually is how they're a little bit more available than you would think to receive that feedback.
Yeah.
I was one of those people, and I'm actually glad that I remembered to bring this up. So before 2016, I didn't vote. I was one of those people. I got to be the privileged white dude that was like, I don't want to participate in this system. And that's fine. If some of y'all don't, I get it. I know that's like an anarcho thing. A lot of people don't. But what I'm saying is, I thought, it's that little change where I was like, you know what? And I made a bet with my spouse. I was like, hey, I was so confident that someone that as fucked as Donald Trump wasn't going to get elected, that she made me sign a contract that said I would participate if he got elected. I would participate in every local election and national election till the end of time. And guess what? He fucking got elected, and I have participated in every single election that I can participate in now. But damn it, I kind of got off track there. So I think it is the little things that you can do as far as reaching out to your congressperson or MP. Whenever all of the COVID stuff happened and a lot of people were having to file for unemployment, and it was just like that mad dash where people were like on hold for hours and stuff like that, I actually found at the time a way to circumvent that and reach directly out to someone in like the Austin Congress. The guy picked up the phone and I was like, hey, so I'm having some trouble filing for unemployment. He goes, and he was really polite, but he was basically like, okay, I'll tell you what, since I clearly don't have direct a way to do that, I'm going to have somebody reach out to you and fix this issue. And within 3 days it was fixed and I was able to get unemployment. I couldn't believe it. It was so like crazy. And I'm not saying that is a typical example, but I will say it's a good way to say that this is they're way more accessible than you think they are in everything you can do no matter how insignificant you think it is making a difference and an impact. Please don't think that what you're doing doesn't count, that your vote doesn't count, that your effort to even like recycle your aluminum cans doesn't count. It's every single thing you do. Don't let anyone tell you that it's bullshit or, you know, that it doesn't matter. So it's a collective, it's a whole. I'm going to get into my Aquarius hippie headspace here in a second.
Well, Netflix released, I don't remember what it's called, but it's David Attenborough's testimony for the planet Earth. And he gives very reasonable things that people can do on an individual level to, you know, protect and preserve the planet. And it's basic shit like, hey, you know, maybe eat a little less meat, and you know, go for more renewable resources, like small incremental things that people can do to. It's actually a really great documentary. I love David Attenborough so much.
Can you actually share that in the chat? Because
I'm trying to find out what it's. I'm trying to remember what it's called.
And then after you share that, I think we're going to actually call this a wrap for the day. I could talk about all of this for hours, and thank every single one of you for sticking with us during this much fun and much debated topic. I loved being able to just openly talk about all this stuff. And as Mistress McCutchan and I have talked about before, we need to get way more comfortable as a human race discussing politics with each other and discussing death, because both of those things happen whether you want them to or not. So
oh, and please have me back. I would love to discuss that stuff further. Yeah, like
yeah,
this would
you're
be a
definitely
great
coming
thing.
back. I didn't mean to get excited.
These are things that definitely need to be normalized, being able to have conversations, because again, we're not all going to think the same, and I get it, but being able to discuss and exchange these ideas, I think, is really valuable, and it just helps us relate to each other and be able to do something.
Precisely.
Because there's definitely moments for action to happen, and again, some people don't know where to start or what to do, and some people are afraid to talk about these things because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, or they don't want to rock the boat or whatever, and then be shunned because they believe a certain thing or whatever. And it's like, well, no, let's be adults and actually have a conversation. And even if there's some raised voices involved, you know, at the end of the day, hopefully we can all have a beer, go to the club together when that can be a thing again, and we'll dance it out.
Oh, absolutely. If our basic fundamentals are the same, but we have, but there's some kind of stark contrast with different subjects, I'm open to it. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It is one of those things we got to try to just be good to each other so we can be good for the planet and be good for the future. So
yeah.
As any outros from you?
Yeah, where are we going?
We are leaving.
Well, I gotta figure out where we should raid into.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we're gonna raid.
We're gonna raid. Raid! Like those old Roach commercials.
Raid.
Raid! Yeah, raid! I always got them confused with like the Mucinex snot guy.
Oh. with the bad accents. Oh my god.
Hey, we're moving into your nose.
I know where we're going.
Okay. Thank you both for having me on. This was really fun. Yes. I feel like we could go for another hour easily. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely easily. If I wasn't falling asleep. Sorry.
Yes. Azy, thank you for letting me co-host again. I really appreciate this.
I'm so glad all the fucking time that you said yes and you were excited to say yes. That was fabulous.
I was. And Mistress McCutchan, thank you. It has been an absolute honor. You're a wonderful person. Y'all check out the It's Midnight Somewhere podcast. Please check out Prophecy Online, streaming on Twitch. Definitely go hit up the apparel shop, Kaufen Apparel. That's Kaufen.
Sounds like coffin.
It sounds like coffin.
It sounds like coffin, but it is the German word to buy.
That's true. Think of like
Play of
Andy
words.
Andy Kaufman, but Andy Coffin. But and don't let it fool you. I've talked to a couple people that when they go to the site, they think they only deliver to Canada. No, I've ordered stuff to the U.S. Please check out Kaufen Apparel, and
We ship
everybody,
everywhere.
and everybody have a great night.
Yep, and come
Night.
back tomorrow night for the Obscura Undead Virtual Club. We have DJ Sinus who will be spinning with us, and who, I guess, announcement, because I haven't fucking posted it on fucking social media yet. DJ Sinus is now a member of the Obscura Undead DJ crew. Yay! And we're going to go visit Ellie Bat in about 10 seconds.
We're going to Eli? Oh, sweet.
Sorry, I
Nice.
say Ellie Bat, but it's Eli. I know it's Eli.
Y'all, stick around for this. The Eli is wonderful, and we're about to raid Eli. He's going to be very happy.
Awesome.
He's a San Antonio DJ. Have a good night, y'all.
Here we go.
Hell yeah, he's going to be so excited.